Welcome to our fifth video. We're going to focus on adding and editing objects. First of all, in our 3D viewport, at the very bottom, we can actually see where it says Add. And here I have meshes, and I have a range of objects there: curves, surfaces, metaball, text, armatures, lattice, empty, speakers, camera, lamp, force field, and group instance. Some of these items I will not cover, but they all have their purpose and their usefulness. For most of the things that we do, we will use we'll actually use mesh items. Another way to add a object to the scene is over in the Tools menu on the 3D viewport. We can go to where it says, actually oddly enough I don't, Create, and then I have the different items listed here as well. Most things that we work with are meshes. And you can convert different types of objects like the curves into meshes. But for right now, we'll stick with just working with the meshes. There are advantages and disadvantages to using different types of curves. However, there are some things that can only be done with curves, and so we will learn a little bit about those later. By default, the scene already has a point lamp in it, and we will use those later. For our scenes, even though we're not going to get into it in this video, how we make these appear different colors and things like that, add shading to them and textures, does depend on what renderer we're using. And so we're going to get in the habit of switching to Cycles renderer, and I'll highlight that probably at the beginning of the next several videos, but eventually that's just going to be something that we do, and will be expected that you know how to do that. Over on the side again, there's, right now I can see where it says Create Tools, or Create, but I don't actually see some of the options for editing the shape itself. To edit the shape, we're going to go into edit mode. I can go down here at the very bottom and switch into edit mode there, or I prefer to do tab, and tab will take us into edit mode. Right now you can see vertex points because we're in vertex edit mode. And I can see that vertex select, edge select, and face select. If I do Control Tab, it'll give me the shortcut to switch between those different modes. I'm going to go ahead and go to face. And when we're working with items, let's say that I want to just work with the top face here. If I want to move the top face, I can hit G for grab. And again, this would work if I have the whole object selected or multiple objects selected or whatever. But grab is the move tool. And if I want it to move straight up and down, I can hit Z. Or if I want to move horizontally along the Y-axis, I can press Y. If I want it to move along the X-axis, I can hit X. If I want it to move both in the X and Y directions, but not up and down, I can hit Shift Z, and now I have two axes, so I can move it around in that plane of where it was before, and as I do that, it'll stretch out in different ways, right? Escape to cancel the option if you don't want to. R is rotate. And again, same things apply. If I hit Y, it'll rotate around that Y-axis. If I hit X, it'll rotate around the X-axis. If I hit Z, it'll rotate around the Z-axis. And then escape to cancel the option. Another editor is Scale, S, and so as I move things in or out, in this case, I'm going to hit Escape. I'm going to select everything on the object by hitting A, which will first deselect. A again will select everything. And so if I hit S now, everything starts to scale up and down. And because of the mode I'm in, it's actually scaling from the center of the object. And if I hit Z, it'll only scale up and down. If I hit X or Y, again, those respective dimensions, if I hit Shift and Z, then it'll scale out in those directions. And you notice that if I go too far away, it'll actually just move around the screen, around the 3D viewport. It'll just go around and around. And hit Escape again. If you want something to get small, it's usually a good idea to move your cursor out and away from the object and hit S to bring it in, because it's a little bit easier to work with. Whereas if I'm in the middle and I hit S and I bring it in, I have less control as I move that closer in. Similarly, if I want to get something larger, being in here makes it easy to get it really, really big fast. Escape out of that. Then being out here, if I hit S for scale, and then I have to go around. So depending on how much control you want of those things and where you want it, you may want to be very careful about where your mouse pointer starts. As I edit objects, one of the most useful things to do is to add sections. I could hit E for extrude and add a section in here. And I could add lots of sections if I want. Or if I wanted to, I'm going to undo Control Z to undo those last two. Let's say that I just take this, I could grab that, or I could hit G and Z. Let's say I stretch it out. If I want it to be an exact number of units, I could hit 5 and hit Enter. And I just extended the top of that up 5 units. And I'm going to add some loop cuts to this. So I'm going to do Control R. And I can see where it added the first one there. If I use the scroll on the mouse, I can add lots of them. I can add as many as I want. Right now I have 54. I can see that number down here. Maybe I want 100. So I could type in 100, hit Enter. And now you'll notice that it slides up and down. So if I only had one there, I can move it back and forth, up and down. I'm going to hit Escape. And it automatically switched to edge mode when I use the loop cut tool. I'm going to right click. Actually, I'm going to change to face mode. Right click at the top. And in the last video, we talked about proportional editing. I'm going to turn that on. Say enable. And I'm going to hit R and Z. And so right now I have proportional editing on. If I scroll, right now I'm scrolling my wheel, what I think of as down. I can rotate this a lot. And in this case, the more adding those 100 cuts allowed me to make it look a little bit better as I rotate this. If I had rotated it with only doing 3 cuts or 5 cuts, you would lose a lot of the geometry as you go around. Here I still have a really nice kind of sections going down. I can see that those are squares. Okay, so that's the loop cut tool. And if I look over here at where it says Transform under Tools, when I went into edit mode, I got all these different tools. So for instance, if I hit Tab, now I see the tools for when I'm in an object. Tab again, oops, Tab again, mouse over this part of it. And I can see several different options that I have that I can work with, including some things that I've done earlier, like loop cut, duplicate in the last video. I'll get into these tools in another video as well. So very useful way of doing things there. I have this top face still selected. I'm going to hit subdivide, and right now it's 4 sections. Down in this bottom section, let's make our menu just a little bit larger. I'm going to widen it out a bit. And I'll do that with this one too as well. And I can see where I can actually add cuts to this to divide it up even more if I want. Now, if I extrude this, I will see sidelines. I just tabbed out. Hit E to extrude. And you notice the blue line here, it's not actually the blue of the Z-axis. What it is it's going along the normal. If I hit Z, that goes away. I can move it wherever I want. Z again, now I have, I can toggle between the things. So this is the up and down. Since this was already facing the same direction as Z, it pretty much looks identical to that. So here I just added lots of various faces. If I go to extrude under tools, I can actually extrude these in different ways. So for instance, normals, as I said before, it's just going to extrude the way that I would if I just hit E or region. I could do individual faces, where if I do individual faces, I could go and I could select this one, say, and oops, I'm still on proportional editing. Let's turn that off. O is the shortcut to turn on and off proportional editing. And let's say I take this one and I pull it out. Since I did extrude individually, it divided all of these up. And we could do some different things with that if we wanted to mess around with it, whatever works. If I were to undo that last transformation, I'm going to hit C for circle select, drag over these, and if I change my mode for a center, so down here I have modes. Let's escape out of circle select, and then I can do individual. If I scale these down, I can get them to be little individual points, and it's moving them all based on the center of each of those faces. When a face is actually connected to other faces, though, it's going to move other lines. Or if you have multiple selected like so, it'll treat them as one item. But if you have them so that they're not connected with other things, then it'll change it a little bit. I'm going to move this further out and bring it in, see what it does. It'll change them in other ways too. Since this is all connected, it's changing those vertices, which means it's changing these as well. So we can edit and play around with that in different ways. I'm going to go ahead and stop this one. In the next video, we'll look at different selection techniques for selecting items, and we'll also look at some of the other tools that are available here.